stickers on our Priuses. You know what I'm saying. I'll tell you why. Because you're allowed to build there. Because every third person in Texas isn't someone whose job it is to make sure nothing gets done. Democrats, these are your issues. Education, race, the environment, and I say this with love. You're losing to the Waffle House car on the lawn states. Republicans have taken full advantage of how snobby and out of touch Democrats have become to claim the title of Party of the Working Class.
Working Americans built the Democratic Party. Now they're walking away in record numbers, and Bill Maher just tore his own side apart on live TV explaining why. He didn't soften a single line. But before we move further, if you enjoy short commentary videos with full breakdowns, take just 2 seconds to subscribe to the channel. Alright, let's get back to our video.
Let's run for office as if the voters don't live here. As if they don't go to the grocery store and Starbucks and the office. But they do. They live here. And they actually see women and people of color. And it doesn't look like some patriarchal, racist nightmare. Do problems remain pertaining to? Of course. But a poll last year asked, if America is the greatest country in the world, more blacks and Hispanic Americans agreed with that than the white progressives. It asked if racism is built into our society. White progressives agreed with that at higher levels than black and Hispanic people. It asked if government should increase border security. Same result. Hispanic Americans are less okay with illegal immigration than whitey. The votes are in. They don't want your pity.
Just destroyed the entire pity model of the modern Democratic Party. Working Americans don't want handouts. They don't want lectures. They don't want to be told they are victims of a country most of them are proud to live in. Critics say the numbers back Maher up in ways every Democratic strategist needs to read 3 times. Working class voters of every background broke for the other side by 12 points in 2024, up from just 4 points in 2020. That's a triple in a single cycle collapse. Look, this is not a slow drift. This is a stampede out the door.
Have taken full advantage of how snobby and out of touch Democrats have become to claim the title of Party of the Working Class, but Trump's big, beautiful budget cuts Medicaid by $723 billion. Steve Bannon says a lot of MAGA is on Medicaid. Yeah, it is. 42% of MAGA voters say Medicaid is important to them. Let's see if they miss it.
It stole the label of working class party, and Democrats handed it over on a plate. Some critics say this is what happens when a party stops speaking to plumbers, truckers, welders, and warehouse workers, and starts speaking only to college professors and consultants. And here's the number that should end every Democratic dinner party conversation for good. In 2008, Obama won voters making under $50,000 by a 28-point margin. By 2024, that same group was voting for the other side. A 28-point lead vanished into thin air in 16 years. That isn't a bad campaign cycle. That is a party losing its founding base. And then Senator Fetterman himself explains exactly why.
Men are, we hear this all the time, that young men are in crisis, that women are doing better in college, they're doing better.
Without a doubt, though, there's part of the Democratic Party became more and more anti-men, or describing that they were part of the problem, or they have toxic traits, and for those things. And that's why there's been such a big migration away from the Democratic Party, from young men, and that's really why we lost in 2024. Now, if you identify anyone as the problem or blame them for some things, then you're going to lose. We forgot that we are in the business of addition, not subtraction.
So we have.
So there was a testosterone shift in 2024. I don't think that's a long-term trend. I think it was a very short-term generational shift that we're experiencing within the Democratic Party. Overall,
said the quiet part out loud. Democrats told an entire generation of young men they were the problem, toxic, broken, and then acted shocked when those men walked out the door and voted the other way. This is the most self-inflicted political wound in modern American history. In Maher's view, no political party in the country's history has ever won an election by telling half its own voters they are the enemy. And Fetterman's line about being in the business of addition, not subtraction, is the cleanest political sentence any Democrat has said in years.
No shit. that's been created in the laboratory. If you can't pick it and sear it, I don't want it.
We've lost the vote. You talk to any of the traditional union members that are men. We've lost them a long time ago. I've witnessed that migration away from the Democratic Party starting back in 2016. We absolutely have a problem in that part of the demographic. So we really have to find a way to bring them back and make better arguments without blaming them or describing they are the problem.
Union members, the exact voters the Democratic Party built its 20th century identity around, gone. Critics say the numbers confirm the disaster. The Democratic lead among union members from minority communities collapsed from 82 points in 2020 to 61 points in 2024. Latino union members went from a 28-point Democratic lead to just 12. That right there is a 2-decade collapse packed into a single election. To Maher, this migration didn't happen last month. It's been building for a decade, and the party leadership refused to see it. And then comes the clip where Maher lands the funniest and most accurate description of both parties ever put on television.
The Democrats come to grips with that. They won't have much success winning elections. Let's just put it out there. Women are the Democrats' base, and men who get hit in the head for a living are Trumps. They're the bro party, the party of car shows on the White House lawn and breaking shit and seeing what happens and busting balls and shooting stuff like beer and laws. Oh, yeah. It's been that way for a long time. The mommy party and the daddy party, the party of hats and the party of truck nuts. But that divide is on steroids now and getting worse.
Party and the daddy party. Only Maher can make a room full of liberals laugh at their own reflection. Critics say the joke lands because it's true. According to the American Enterprise Institute, in 2000, 71% of Republicans and 61% of Democrats were married. By 2024, only 50% of Democrats were married. The gender and lifestyle gap has now become a canyon. In Maher's view, this isn't just funny, this is fatal. When one party becomes the destination for every married construction worker and the other becomes the club for every single college graduate on Blueski, you don't have a coalition anymore. You have a demographic time.
I think it mostly comes from there's a faction of the left that their whole identity is really about being social justice warriors. I remember during COVID, David Leonhardt in the New York Times, who really great reporter, and he did this story about the percentage of Republicans versus Democrats what their assessment was how many people with COVID were hospitalized. The Democrats are off like by 50%. Right. There was like half the population. And I forget what the line that he wrote was, but it was something like on the left, like COVID safety is very core to their identity. And I'm just not talking about just COVID, but like it's very core to their identity that we're the good people. We're the people who don't want anybody to die from COVID. Well, nobody really did. Nobody there were honest disagreements, but nobody really wanted people to die. Right. People make trade-offs with death all the time. We've heard that. We all drive cars, people die, blah, blah, blah.
In this house, we believe lawn sign, the symbol of an entire class of liberal Americans who confuse yard decoration with actual politics. And believe me, Maher's COVID example is the perfect proof. Democrats overestimated how many people were hospitalized by 50%. Not because they were dumb, because being scared was part of their identity. To Maher, this is the exact disease destroying the modern Democratic brand. The whole point isn't to solve problems. The whole point is to be seen as the good people. And working Americans figured out the difference a long time ago. And then Maher exposes how this identity obsession has now spread to literally every part of daily life.
So, but that was the overarching thing was like, we have to be the good people. On COVID, the people with the lawn signs. It's in this house, we believe there are no illegals on stolen land, and all love is. And things I don't disagree with, of course. Well, I disagree with the stolen land thing. That's silly. Either shut up or give it back. But just in general, they have this idea that they are only really fully alive if they are taking the cause of some marginalized group. So they keep finding, obesity was one for a while. Again, that's completely Orwellian, like healthy at any weight.
As an oppression category. That is where the modern left has actually ended up. Critics say this is the pattern Maher keeps trying to warn his own side about. The far left cannot function without finding a new group to save every 3 months. To Maher, real liberalism used to be about making everyone's life better. The new version is about finding new categories of victims and building a career around them, and the working class who actually deal with real problems every day see through it instantly.
We take the clothespin off your noses and actually converse with the other half of the country? Stop screaming at people to get with the program and instead make a program worth getting with? What good is liberalism if you don't win elections? Last week, Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton said, "I have 2 little girls. I don't want them getting run over on a playing field by a formerly male athlete. But as a Democrat, I'm supposed to be afraid to say that." Yes, there's the problem in a nutshell. Because Congressman Moulton sounds reasonable to me, but his campaign manager immediately resigned in protest. Let me make this as plain as I can to the smart people. The campaign manager who resigned, yeah, let that person go. Marginalize that guy. Try making too woke be a cancelable offense. It's important for America to have a center-left party, and for that party to be competitive. And a good first step toward that goal would be to make the voters not want to punch you in the face.
What is liberalism if you don't win elections? Read that sentence again slowly. Critics, this is the question every Democratic donor, strategist, and activist needs to write on a mirror and stare at every morning. In Maher's view, the party has spent 10 years building the purest ideology ever and losing every state that used to be reliably blue. And Maher's line about the campaign manager who resigned in protest is even sharper than it sounds. When a moderate Democrat says a moderate thing and his own campaign staff quits in protest, the party isn't losing the working class. The party is chasing them out with a broom.
40%? Would he still be saying, as he does say, we need Democratic leaders in California who are willing to say no to their friends? That would be the unions, the bureaucrats, the lawyers, the consultants, the regulators, and all the special interest friends who make living in this state such a frustrating, maddening experience. It's why the railroads don't get built, the potholes don't get filled, the homeless don't get housed, the kids don't learn. Did you know that a 4th grader in Mississippi is 2.5 times as likely to be proficient in math and reading as one in California? Mississippi is kicking our in education, and for way less money. We're 37th in 4th grade reading, they're 9th. Texas is kicking our green energy. The average time to get solar panels connected there was 3 to 4 months. About 1,000 days faster than it took me. Remember when I was trying to get my solar hooked up? It would have been quicker to build a windmill.
Mississippi is beating California in 4th grade reading, in math, in actual education outcomes, for a fraction of the money. Some critics say this is the single most damning stat in modern American politics. California, the crown jewel of democratic governance, is number 37 in the country on 4th grade reading. Mississippi is number 9. Look, this isn't a partisan attack. This is what the actual national test scores say. And when a state Democrat spent decades ridiculing is now doing a better job educating children than the state Democrats built their brand on, the model is broken. To Maher, this is the receipt working families see every...
So Texas has passed California in solar and blows away California when it comes to wind and energy storage. How does a state with no pro-climate policies produce better climate results than a state where, here, even though we have so much better stickers on our bumper bumper stickers on our Priuses, you know what I'm saying. I'll tell you why. Because you're allowed to build there. Because every third person in Texas isn't someone whose job it is to make sure nothing gets done. Democrats, these are your issues. Education, race, the environment, and I say this with love. You're losing to the Waffle House car on the lawn state.
Beating California on solar, on wind, on energy storage, on every clean energy metric California has been bragging about for 20 years. Critics say this is what happens when regulation becomes religion. California has 395,000 rules. Texas has open ground. And every business, every builder, every young family is choosing the state that lets them actually do something. In Maher's view, this is the whole disaster of modern progressive governance in one comparison. Democrats own the slogans. Republicans own the results.
It's called my favorite congressman was in hospice recently. Barney Frank died this month, but on the way out, he said, I want to use my unfortunate situation to say something that I think is very important. He said the key to liberal democracy being able to come back is to get rid of the perception that we have allowed to grow that the entire Democratic Party is committed to a series of very drastic social reconstructions that go beyond the politically acceptable. And there, in one sentence, is the autopsy the Democrats have been so desperately searching for. From a guy who delivered it right before he needed one himself. It sounds a lot like what Obama said after he left office. The average American doesn't think we have to completely tear down the system and remake it. They just don't want to see crazy stuff. Is this really so hard a message for Democrats to say?
Congressman, one of the most respected liberal minds of his generation. And what did he leave behind as his final political message? The Democratic Party is now seen as the party of drastic social reconstruction, and it is losing every voter it needs to survive. Critics say the numbers prove Frank right in every possible way. The working class share of the Democratic coalition peaked at 56% in 1960. Today, it sits at just 30%. Since 1958, the majority of working class voters have not identified as Democrats. Not for a single election. That is not a slump. That is a 66-year retreat. To Maher, this is why Democrats keep losing rooms they should be dominating. They stopped speaking working class English years ago. And unless the party wakes up, unless it drops the lectures, the labels, and the lawn signs, it will keep losing every American voter with a paycheck and a family and a working knowledge of real life. Barney Frank knew it. Bill Maher knows it. The country already voted on it. The only question left is whether the party will ever admit it. Now I want to hear from you. So tell me, is Bill Maher the last honest voice inside the Democratic Party? Can the modern left win back a single working class vote it lost? Or is the damage permanent? And who deserves the biggest share of the blame for the collapse? The party, the media, or the activists? Drop your answer in the comments, hit that like if Maher said what needed to be said,